know, give it another 10 seconds. Good?
We're going live right now.
Okay, let's call to order the Board of Library Trustees for Arlington Heights Memorial Library Committee of the whole meeting for Monday, May 3rd, 2021. And roll call, please.
Trustee Meadow?
Here.
Trustee Rule?
Here.
Trustee Smart is absent. Trustee Suplet?
Here.
Trustee Tammy?
Here.
President Zick?
Here. And for, so this is being the, what do you call it? Stream, yes, thank you, on YouTube right now. And if anybody watching, if it looks a little bit different, it's because we're not up in the Hendrickson room right now. We're down in the Cardinal room. So if it looks a little bit different to everybody here. All right, so let's move on to public comment. I had one public comment that was emailed here from Melissa Kayer. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong. How come the Arlington Heights Memorial Library does not get invited to the village joint review board meetings? I, for one, do not know what the joint review board meetings are anyways.
I'm guessing that would be a question for the village.
For the question for the village? Okay,
Mhm.
okay, that's something we can take a look into. Melissa? Okay, I think that's it. Any other public comments? We good? Good. Okay, thank you. All right, let's go on to item 1, proposed revisions to policy 7.004 meeting rooms for public use.
Okay, so I am providing you guys with an updated draft to the meeting room policy after the meeting, our last committee, the whole meeting, discussing this policy. In the draft policy, I did remove the limitations that were discussed, but in the memo, I included portions of those limitations that are within other library policies, so you have some context as to how other libraries are handling these situations. There were a couple other changes within there. So we removed the library retains the right to monitor all meetings conducted on the premises to ensure compliance with library regulations and policies. That one we removed temporarily just for further discussion. During the meeting, we did talk about changing that up a little bit just to say that all meetings conducted must be compliant with library regulations and policies. So that could be a good middle ground if we didn't want to say that we're monitoring all the meetings. But again, we did include what other libraries are including in their policies. And then the fees, we did talk about a little bit about the fees at the meeting last time, and I wanted to give you guys some additional information for further discussion on the fees. The fees are listed in the policy as no charge for half the room, and then $25 if there's refreshments, $50 for the full room, no refreshments, and then $75 for the full room and refreshments served. And we had talked about increasing those fees, but we did a little write-up here in explaining why we don't think that that necessarily would be the most inclusive thing to do, especially with a lot of these smaller organizations that are utilizing the rooms.
Very good. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you, President Zick. So the way this item is organized, you have the limitations and then you have the numbers. And then we go into the section that's identified as 7.004. I can't follow where these limitations go relative to the policy 7.004.
Oh, okay. So the policy 7.004, this is the updated policy with those limitations removed. The numbering that was used is just the numbering that was original to.
Okay, so you remove the limitation.
Right. In the draft, hoping for further discussion on it, but I wanted to make sure that we're including the changes that you guys suggested last time.
So what are you envisioning here, Mike, with respect to the way you're going to share with us this policy when we meet as a board?
I'll give you a final draft based on.
But is it this?
Yes.
And without the limitations that you identified in front of it?
Well, unless you guys decide differently, seeing the context of those limitations based on what other libraries are doing. So based on this conversation this evening, I'll come up with a final draft that'll bring.
Okay, so that's still on the tables. Okay.
So, I see. So you want us to comment, these are these recommendations or?
These are recommendations. I wanted to give the board context, because at our last meeting, we were discussing, it had come up, are we looking at other library policies?
Mhm.
Okay, so, okay, now I'm starting.
Yeah.
So the first one, commercial and for profit purposes, for events held by for profit organization involving the sale, advertising, solicitation, or promotion of any product or service. When you say that, on number one there, are you saying that we're going to have that in the policy where we will allow that?
No, they may not be used for
Limitation.
those purposes.
Will not be able to.
So the first line under limitations, uses and or activities, meetings room may not be used for, included but are not limited to commercial and for-profit purposes.
Okay.
So on and so
So
forth.
there are the exclusions.
So you're going to add the section called limitations to 7.004.
It's in there currently. There's only 2 bullet points in there
Oh,
currently.
there you go,
right
I'm
now.
sorry, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
So we
I was
gotta
missing the
talk-
whole boat on this.
No, but now
Sorry.
I got it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
now we have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
So you should go first. Since you raised your hand.
Well, no, I mean, now I totally understand what you're talking about. So you're talking about the limitations on the bottom of 7004 to include potentially some of these that are limitations existing in other libraries.
Correct. In the draft I brought to the last meeting, all of those limitations were included in that policy. And there were points of discussion throughout the meeting. And it seemed like overwhelmingly that the board wanted those removed from the policy. So I did remove them in this draft, but I did want to provide that context in the memo for further discussion.
Wow,
So,
I think you made a mistake.
Yeah.
More
There's a
complicated.
lot to talk about here. And I can even reflect on what I said 2 weeks ago, and I'll start with the parties and the socials. But my comment was, well, the park district does that. They allow their meeting rooms to be utilized for birthdays and nothing, all of that. Why would we not do that? There's a lot of reasons not to do that, most of it, I would think, with maintenance and such, but,
well, I think if you're going to socials and parties, I suppose with what the park district does, I'm guessing the rate fee is a little bit different.
that, and then that's, yes.
And
it
that's part,
is.
and that's part of it because of, cleaning up and
Yeah.
maintenance and all that, and all things like that.
Right,
Carol?
The only reason why I would add social, private parties, et cetera, if you want to make money.
well, that's right.
I don't see, this is going to run interference with library programs.
Right.
And I know, does the policy include how much time people, what's the time frame for people signing up?
Yeah, there's a minimum,
Once a
I want to
month.
say it's a month.
No, I mean, like, if they want to sign up, I want to book the room, what is that?
6
A month in
months.
advance. Is it 6 months?
6.
Yeah,
6 months, oh my gosh, how many times do we have library programs that, and now we have this policy says it too, we have the right to bump them, but that's not good public relations. So, and then the thing is that you open this up, and then I'll tell you that, and we did talk about this at Guild Board. Gosh, why don't we do birthday party? We could have our staff do stories, and that went over like a lead balloon, let me tell you. I'm thinking of, this could be the way to increase our revenue, but I don't know, I'd be very cautious with that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Were we talking about Makerspace though at one point of using the downstairs area to be allowed birthday parties there?
We did talk about a number of different event possibilities for there, yes.
so
So,
that's item 3.
so that's not off the table yet.
This is specifically for the Hendricks.
Right, this is for the Hendrickson room, so that's not off the table yet for us to be able to do that in the Makerspace.
Right, I think that's a separate animal, and the Makerspace is a little bit different, being that they're closed Mondays and Fridays. There might be some additional flexibility for that. Plus, I don't think we're competing as much for programming space and other things like that.
Well, and that's why I don't think it is necessarily down the road, because I think when you're looking at it right now from this point of view, we're saying, where, John's right, we logically could have those up there. We've got a kitchen up there, we've got the room for it, we could do things like that. But if we're going with the possibility of putting it over there, to me, it's fine, you know, it means that it's okay, you know, we've got a good argument for why we're not having it there, because we're potentially gonna have it there. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, being consistent between the two.
Well, just offering the possibility, you know, I mean, these whole possibility things, you know, it's like the whole commercial part of it for me. And I believe I brought that up a couple of weeks ago. I was kind of like, well, I suppose, and I might be just being a devil's advocate here, what's the harm? If somebody is having an event up there, it's open to everybody, you know, they can't say who can come in, who can't come in. But they want to sell some of their wares, you know, in there to people that are there. Now, they can't do advertisements all around the library, they can't do all that kind of stuff, and they can't get obnoxious, and they have to follow all the library policies. But really, what's the issue with not doing that?
And I want to congratulate you, because I'm gonna blink. When you laid this out now, and I'm seeing that, you know, the issue is capacity. We don't have the capacity to be able to support the things that are in the limitations if we added them to if we made them available. We just don't.
Okay.
And in the capacity, I mean, Carol referenced it, now you're competing against programming. And I'm telling you, that's not a slippery slope, that slope is a cliff. And these meetings will take precedent over the space and force programming out that's not going to reach the community any other way. And so, you know, here I am, the guy that was 2 weeks ago objecting to the language in it, and I'm all on board now. I mean, in terms of the limitations, when I went through this again, I have no objections to your ideas.
So you're saying the commercial part of it is more of a capacity thing and what it will do to other programming potentially here.
Essentially, our mission is to provide programming to the community, not necessarily to provide meeting space. For the park district,
Right,
that's one of their
it is.
roles in the community.
It most definitely is.
Carol, Jim?
Well, I was just gonna say, to me, the greater conflict would be the social gatherings than even commercial. And now, you know, I know our policy before denied use for profit, right? But now are we thinking that we could use, for-profit could use the rooms, but not for selling? I'm thinking like training, you know, if they wanted to book the room for a training seminar for their new recruits or something like that. Because I think, you know, that I'm all for, because I think, you know, we market our services to businesses, say, okay, you can do everything, but you can't use our rooms, you
Well,
know, so,
it allows for it.
pardon?
This allows.
Yeah, this does, and I just wanted to verify, because I'm pretty sure the policy, oh, does
It
it?
doesn't. If you look at the first one on page 1, commercial and for-profit purposes are activities that would not be used for.
Well, it says help by for-profit involving the sale, advertising, solicitation, or promotion.
Product.
And so like, I'm
So
thinking if
training
they
would be-
wanted to use for training or for, I don't know,
Orientation.
orientation, something like that.
But we
yeah.
do say including but not limited to workshops and seminars. So, I mean, it's kind of a blurry line there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you
Shannon,
know, we're envisioning the same workshop where the guy who's, you know, promoting retirement savings plans, and he's bringing these people in, he's getting, you know, he's sending me stuff now, and I'm getting this. And I come into the library and he's basically doing an infomercial for whatever it is that he's selling. And that would be covered by this. But you could still do training.
Yeah.
There's I don't think people are gonna be lining up around the block to try to get the Hendricks room to train their staff.
Well, I guess it just,
But it's,
you know, if we promote a lot of our services to business, I think that's a barrier, you know, not to have them. You know, I know now we don't have the business center per se anymore, so maybe that's not as critical.
Isn't that what the Makerspace is supposed to kind of help with, is that development?
Kind of, but that's different. That's really for idea, you know, creation of things. This is really for supporting our business. And we're able to support the businesses in a very similar way, even without the physical space of the business center. And really, the business center wasn't used in that way. It was used for us to train businesses, but
Right,
not necessarily for businesses that come and use the
To
space.
use the space, yeah.
So could I ask Shannon just to chime in if she has anything?
The businesses that are currently using our conference rooms, which satisfies most of their needs, that's a
Okay.
different policy than Henderson. And if it was, for example, training such as the Department of Motor Vehicles doing rules of the road, that would be permitted.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll just say I'm good with all those limitations now, so thank you for walking me.
Okay, so the limitations that we're going to have. Commercial and for-profit aren't going to be able to do anything where they're promoting their company or their product, okay? And I'm just kind of speaking these in my own language, so I can hopefully make sense. We're going to. We're not gonna allow for private parties at all, social events.
Is it just me or are we missing number 2? It
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
from more commercial.
Sorry,
to
I carried the numbering over from the way they were listed, so you
I'm
know.
not like.
You know,
Yeah,
I went back
no,
and
no,
forth
no.
3 times.
It also went from
Where's
6
two?
to 17 on page 3 or
But at least
4.
you had general regulations. So.
But yeah, right. Okay, so there's no fundraising that's gonna go on and for anything, but that kind of ties into number 1 to a certain degree. The political rallies, so nothing political that we're gonna have in there, but we do allow things like the League of Women Voters to come in and do, but that's a forum, that's not pushing a political movement or.
Just the political nature of it doesn't necessarily keep it from being in the room. It's promoting one candidate, one party, one position.
Gotcha. Shannon?
Campaigning is the difference. So the League of Women Voters is informational and campaigning would be.
Gotcha.
We'll clarify that.
Maybe using that word in here, campaigning, because that's.
Right.
very specific.
Right. Okay, and then religious worship services.
And again, that doesn't mean a religious organization can't use it. They just can't hold worship services in there.
Right. So I think, well, I don't think it's gonna matter, but I think we should be prepared with talking points on the limitations. Because I don't think people are gonna understand where we're coming from, particularly when we're having this conversation around capacity. And our ability to really serve this purpose and at what cost in terms of the programming and our strategic plan and our mission and vision. So that may be helpful. I mean, let's not kill ourselves doing that, but when I look at well, you see the no mention, it's not mentioned by those other libraries, which is in maybe some ways lucky.
So I think what it really comes down to, everybody else, it's the mission of the library. The mission of the library is not to promote something for growing something or whatever, you know, an organization or a business or something like that. It's to provide information, provide access, things like that. Am I saying that right?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Okay, and then the general regulations. Library retains the right to monitor all meetings conducted on the premises to ensure compliance with library regulations and policies. Thank you, Director. So reserve the option of preempt or canceling. You know, yeah, I think that's an absolute. I don't think it's too harsh. I don't think it needs to be any stronger, John.
So if I could, I would move on to the next 7.04 page. And this is a personal bias, but you say musical performances approved by the library. Can we add dance and sport theatrical too as well?
Dancing or theatrical.
Dance or theatrical, musical dance or theatrical performance approved by the library.
If you go on to where it starts actually getting into the policy, it's like
Number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4 says
Library availability and use.
Oh, number 4. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm.
Was this the one we were talking about where everything said that it had to be approved by the executive director?
Yes.
But you're gonna expand that to be,
Library administration. So if you look at number 2 under eligibility, the very end of that paragraph, you'll see library administration that used to be executive director.
Do we allow teachers to have recitals here?
Yes, we do.
25 kids.
Mr. Barry.
There's another observation that I would like to share, and that was sort of the comment was that I have to clean the room and leave it the way it was when I came in, but there's no consequence if I don't.
I think there is actually.
No, because I was looking for it, and it's an implied consequence, but it doesn't say, or it's only for damages.
It says
So,
failure to abide by library policies and or regulations will result in cancellation or refusal of future reservations. So you could fall back on that
so the concept I was going to raise was deposit.
deposit. Shannon, do you want to speak to deposit?
You probably-
We're talking a little bit about that with logistics.
Yeah, we looked at about a dozen library policies, just our neighboring libraries, and actually the only library that handles a deposit is Gilboa. Other libraries do not take a deposit for anything except use of the piano at Gilboa, and also I believe for their renting their computer room.
Yeah, because, computer.
So why does Gail Borden take deposits?
For the security of the piano and the computers in the lab.
What was the only thing to take deposit for?
Yeah.
Not on meeting space?
No,
So that falls outside the guides now. This particular policy.
You had
Since it's
infringements on
included.
that?
I'm just saying I'm
Otherwise,
wrestling
something
with
that's
this,
actually- No,
because now you got no.
but it
leverage.
just, we want to put a little teeth into
I think
it, so
just the
people
future
treat the piano
use
with
will be,
respect and the computer
But
equipment with
I think you had much
respect.
of an issue with it either.
Access to the library. and things
Because
like
I
that.
haven't rented.
Well,
That's
yeah.
All right, thank you, man.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a few more things I want to point out.
Yes.
Under general regulations, we did make the addition of under donations may not be solicited and organizations may not ask for personal information. That it's not a condition of attendance. That was another thing that we talked about at the last meeting.
Mhm.
And then we also added in the under general regulations, all the way at the end of that section, number 15, bullet point B, not solicit outside the meeting room before, during, or after the meeting or event. So that was another addition that we had.
Letter D.
Second to
It's
last
on the
page.
next page.
Mhm.
What's that said? Yes,
So there's another thing that came on the last meeting.
yes. Donations may not be solicited as a condition of attendance, but we are saying that the donations can be solicited, though. That doesn't go against, contradicted all the first limitation.
That charging?
Yeah,
No, I don't think so. Because if you make it a voluntary donation, you're making it open free of charge. That's why we said not condition of attendance.
mhm.
So if you were saying you had to donate in order to attend, then it would not be considered free of charge. So by saying you can accept donations, but it can't be a condition of attendance.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see if anyone comments.
So the one last observation is that you don't add the waiver of liability to this policy, but you do with the meet with it, so Makerspace one. So why are we not including the waiver of liability in the text of this policy?
Well, this is just the use of a room. The waiver of liability was added to the makerspace in the kitchen because of the use of equipment.
Yeah, it's very.
But you go to great lengths to say the event is not affiliated with, well, okay, so you don't have a waiver of liability for this purpose.
At the very end,
Well, we do put in here that in all the advertisements on 7.004, the event is not affiliated with the Untitled Moore Library, blah, 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 saying that we don't have any affiliation with it.
Well, and you agree to identify and hold harmless the library from any and all actions or suits relating to the use of such facilities, which begs the question, where's the waiver? I mean, it could be super simple. But the waiver is saying, if I agree to rent the Hendrickson room, I identify the home harmless of the library.
Is there something they sign? Is there a form that they sign?
I don't think, do they,
Let me introduce Joey, Dr. Manager. He can explain how
Yeah.
it works.
They do sign a form. I don't know the wording of it. I have to go double check.
But that could be on that form.
yeah, we could put the liability statement.
See
on.
that?
So they do sign a form for the use of the Hendrickson.
Sure.
Okay. Do they sign up for that online, by the way?
Not yet, but when the Henderson room reopens, we hope they will be able to, and then they would also view these policies and click agree at that time as well.
Because that's what I was thinking, if you could sign up for it online and even have a statement in there that says something to the effect by agreeing to this or by signing up for this, you do not hold the library responsible for anything that happens,
Yeah, like they have to agree to those terms.
Yes.
I mean, wouldn't it be that they couldn't even close it out unless they check they waived it, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what we do typically.
Yes.
This may seem silly, but under 15 even we're talking about not soliciting outside the meeting room before, during, or after. Does that need to also say campaigns? Like, it solicit, I think, money, and but like you also are soliciting votes or whatever. Does it need to be?
I think it would fall under our normal
Okay.
code of conduct.
Yeah.
But I'll verify.
Yes, it's not a silly question.
No, that's not. I mean, there's no, I would say there's no harm in
Yeah.
adding the word solicit or campaign.
Right.
Solicitation covers it,
Right.
but like if it's listed, there's no harm in it.
I will bring another draft then to the board meeting. Is that good?
Yes, and thank you, everybody, everybody that put all the
Yeah,
information
good work.
together. This
Yeah,
is
this is
incredible.
probably the most complicated policy to do. It really, there's so many details to it, and you want to get it specific enough, but you can't get it so specific that you leave something out, someone can catch you on it, so it's very challenging to
Good,
do a meeting room policy.
absolutely, okay. And it's a big thing, it's something important that we do also, we have to make sure. Okay, so we're good with that. Okay, let's go on to item 2, the conference room and digital media lab policy.
Okay, so this was another one that we had talked about at the last meeting. There was little change there, just anything that was reflected in there, which I think was very little, if anything. But this policy didn't seem to have the issues that the other one did. So I don't know if you guys have specific questions about this.
Couple things. So in the second paragraph, subject to availability, conference rooms may be used by non-card holders. I'm kind of drawing a hard line on that one. I mean, there's no reason why they cannot get a card unless they're not, and even if they're outside the village. But the likelihood of people outside the village wanting to use our conference rooms seems slim, and I don't see the reason to give it away.
This also applies to the studios. So
Right.
we could have people, and we do have people from outside our community use those rooms.
Yeah, but, so this is where I've taken a hard line, but we're the Arlington Heights Memorial Library.
Mhm. So you're suggesting that it's Arlington Heights card holders?
That sentence be struck, yeah. That's my suggestion to the group.
Where you're going with it, I just don't know if it's necessarily necessary. Because we're making sure that card holders have the first shot at it. So we're keeping track of that, but is there goodwill that we're getting out of it by allowing, especially with the studio, that we're getting out of it by allowing others to be able to come in and use it when it's available?
See, to me, these are village assets.
They are.
You know, these are,
The time is now 7:30, and the library will be closing in 30 minutes. Please use this time to check out your items and finish using the computers and equipment. Please return all library laptop computers to the tech help desk at this time. Thank you.
Doesn't seem so long when when you're sitting here waiting.
and it's subject to, wear, damage, and I don't know why we would subject ourselves to that, to letting a village asset be used by somebody who's not part of the village, and if they are part of the village, all they gotta do is go down the county and get a car.
Not necessarily, because if, say, unincorporated, somebody from unincorporated Arlington Heights wanted to use the conference room, and we have 14 conference rooms and half of them are open, by that, thought we wouldn't allow them to use it.
So, yeah, so we're talking about that slice of Prospect Heights slice, but I thought we already included them as eligible to get cars
They are eligible to get cards, but they have to purchase it.
for the $400 version.
Right.
Now,
And the other thing too is like our residents can go somewhere else and, to another library and use their studio or conference rooms if they're available. So having that reciprocal usage is also.
I'll appreciate what you're saying, and I don't agree, because again, I'm drawing the hard line in the sand about village assets, and that these are village assets that should be used and reserved for cardholders from the village. But, I mean, I'll just leave it at that.
Are you just saying that the conference rooms are available to
Just if-
cardholders, not the digital video app? Because this just says conference rooms may be used.
Conference and studio rooms made for the use of customers who have a valid Arlington Heights Memorial Library card, subject to availability. Conference rooms may be used.
So it's just conference rooms anyway.
Let me verify that. Shannon, is that where
Yeah, the
studio?
reason that we put this in here is because we do not hit capacity on a regular basis with those conference rooms, and we do have non-cardholders who arrive and would like to use them on the spot. So if we not permit that and they are available, that means they go in.
I'm just questioning, the studio though is not part of that. You have to be a cardholder.
Well, unless you're a District 214 student.
Oh.
So you can be a District 214 student and not live in Arlington Heights and still use the studios.
Maybe use my name,
Do we know if you're a Christian member?
because I have no problem with the conference room.
Yeah, do we know why people who aren't card holders or aren't residents stop in and want to use it?
No, they do not have a library. They don't have a
They
library.
don't have, they don't have a library.
They're not, if they're in unserved
Yeah, or they don't. have
Inverness.
The number of conference rooms available.
For me, I think it's just one of those things, especially if other libraries are doing it in our residents get to use them. I really don't see much of an issue with it personally.
I will note that a lot of those non-cardholders are local businesses.
Or what?
Local businesses. People who don't live in Arlington Heights but work in Arlington Heights use the rooms quite frequently.
And there's a policy on that too, right? If you're a local business owner, you have access to the library under certain circumstances, which means you have a card.
Correct, but you're limited to 3 cards. So if you have a large company such as a real estate company, you'd only be able to have 3 users
Yeah.
use our rooms.
So-
So large businesses, attorneys, the hospital, they all use our rooms.
All of them who could afford the $400.
Well, that's only if they're a non-resident.
So that aside, you won't be surprised if there's a dissent. But the other comment was this, the other people that are using this are tutors. And we know that there is business being run in the conference rooms, which is great, but then it kind of goes against the limitation for the Hendrickson room for commercial and for-profit purposes held by for-profit organizations. Now, I'm not one to pick nits on this, but if that person doesn't have a card and they're now running their tutoring operation through our library, I want them spending the $400.
Do you have tutors that use it that are not library card holders?
We don't know.
And I would add to that too, we don't know if money is exchanging hands in those situations.
Well, yeah,
Because we're not. in the
we're not
conference room.
naive.
Well, yeah, but we don't have a way to prove
Right.
that there's an exchange of money. in this
Right.
situation.
We had this conversation about tutors, I think, when I first joined the board. And trying to go back to my memory here, I know at that point, we basically said tutors is an extension of the education system.
Well, the kid's a card holder.
Kids are
Probably,
that's
yeah.
fine. Kids are
Okay, so that's
part of it.
fine.
So allowing tutors to do that, we felt was fine for the whole situation.
Which is fine too, but there's a card holder in the room. No,
Wait, the person who makes the reservation has to have has to have a card? No, just an ID.
No, I think they have to be a card holder, don't they?
So for about the last 3 years, you do not need to have an Arlington Heights card to reserve the right. It is open to reciprocal borrows, so people from other libraries. We have been doing that for about the last 3 years, and we did that because we analyzed the rooms, they were not at capacity. They still have not been at capacity, they're very busy, but we are not turning away Arlington Heights card holders or residents
Yeah.
for others to use it.
I think that, for me, that's the important
That's the
distinction.
priority, right?
As long as our size.
all right, so add after non-holder, card holders, at the discretion of library administration.
Priority goes.
Thank you.
One question I had though, where does this room fall underneath? Cardinal room.
As far as public council,
Well, that, as far as any of these policies.
it's not a publicly available room.
Belongs to administration.
This is staff only.
Really? Well, after 8 years, I never knew that. Okay,
Yeah, Hendrickson was.
because I know I've seen events that have been handled here, but I guess the events that have been in here have all been library sponsored. Now that I think about it.
Or things we partner with people on.
Okay. All right, we do that. Are we gonna do that one? Okay. All right, let's go on to item 3. Makerspace and kitchen waivers and policies.
Okay.
Another good amount of work done. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are bringing the Makerspace policy back for further discussion. We've included the Makerspace kitchen policy also, and waivers for both the Makerspace and the kitchen. So as mentioned in the memo, just to be clear that these policies were drafted after reviewing over a dozen library Makerspace policies and policies and waivers over a dozen instructional and shared kitchen spaces. So this was, not created in a vacuum by any means. These are pretty consistent with other Makerspace policies, and also our attorney has reviewed.
So this was the, if you go into the second page, well, if you go to the page, it's a Makerspace kitchen policy. At the bottom of this kitchen rental. And the third item is, long story short, the kitchen should be left in the same condition as upon arrival. I tried that at my house, and maybe you've been a lot more successful in your experiences, but it ain't working in my house. I don't know how you're gonna make it work in this house.
Well, and this is kind of a
Without a deposit.
Yeah.
this is a kind of a general statement. As mentioned in the memo, we don't have the rental agreement done yet. But
Right,
that rental agreement, we'll get into more detail as to what exactly that part means.
right. So I'm good up to this point, but this is where I'm a little more assertive with respect to the deposit concept, because there's too many things that could be damaged or just left in bad condition, requiring you guys to take care of it. And
Oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
Is there going to be it can't be a reasonable, but still a security deposit on this kitchen? My concern is, I don't think we're gonna put people through training on how to use things, and yet if they don't use them properly, these appliances are very, I like the stove, they're very expensive. And you wouldn't want someone, we can forgive them, but then we're out that stove, you
Right,
know?
yeah, we haven't discussed or finalized fees and deposits yet, but
Yeah,
Chris Kruger's here, our assistant manager for the Makerspace. Essentially, he's heading up the Makerspace project. Chris or Shannon, do you guys want to speak to anything with deposits or costs?
Just to follow up, like I said, we haven't fully discussed the rental agreement. I think that's where we're gonna put, or deposit requirement.
I almost think you have to interview people. If they want to use that kitchen. And, have a few specific questions of their experience. I mean, you just don't know. Someone said, well, I've always wanted to bake and I have a terrible oven, and, and now their lack of knowledge could be a problem. So, it might not hurt just to have some very pointed questions to interview people that, that want to take over the kitchen for their own use. Where, unless you're gonna have a staff person in there, which I know you won't, you can't afford that.
Chris has pulled rental agreements for commercial kitchens from like Brooklyn to Colorado. And some of the things that they include in their agreements are insurance, certification and inspections, responsibilities and duties, health and food safety, allergens, building access and security, storage, orientation, reservations, cancellations, cleaning, and of course, like deposits.
Yeah.
Some require a 50% deposit when we rent the
Yeah.
room. So all those things will be included in the rental agreement.
To your point, maybe we include a bullet point in there about our right to refuse anyone renting the space
Right.
for whatever reason.
That might be a protection, just in case, well, I'm a taxpayer, I should have the right to use it.
Carol, you bring up an interesting thing, an interesting point though. It's what if somebody just doesn't know how to use certain things? That they're in there and they're causing themselves a lot of potential issues along with everybody else in the building itself. So how do you get to, if you interview them, sure, but they're probably gonna say, yes, of course, I know how to use it, type of thing, but I wonder what these commercial kitchens do. How do they know that somebody that they're letting in there actually knows how to use the equipment? That's a good question.
See, I think with the Makerspace equipment, and we're gonna have staff right there, right? Yes, that, assisting with the laser cutter or something like that, but the kitchen, probably not. So.
Right. Have you guys thought about doing any sort of training or anything before?
Just an orientation before kitchen rental, that's pretty common as well.
Oh, good.
The rental agreements include a requirement for the renter to carry their own liability insurance. So we're just exploring how that works.
Yeah. That's good.
I can tell you people who actually supposedly know how to cook also sometimes put the butter on top of the stove because the oven's warm and you can melt the butter. That might be a problem.
Hey, I did it once.
Just saying.
I was saying, where did it, okay.
This may not be a child that happened to do this.
There's some weird place to go with that one. I'm gonna leave it alone.
Thank you, guys.
But yes, it is a good point. We do want to make sure that everybody gets in there. It's for their own safety, just to make sure that they know how to use it. Because for the 3D printers, we're going to have they're going to have to make sure that they've got a competency to be able to use those. I would imagine.
Yes. Right.
So same thing with this.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll add a fifth bullet point under kitchen rental for right to refuse, right for us to refuse anybody utilizing the kitchen space. The other elements that we talked about will be included in the rental agreement. You good with that?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, we talked about this a couple of months ago, that people do bizarre things. And
Especially with microwaves.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a microwave in there?
I think so.
There it is.
No animals put in the microwaves. Do you
Aluminum-
guys have that as part of the agreement?
Aluminum foil.
Aluminum foil.
Yeah, aluminum foil,
Plastic that are welded onto the
no
microwave.
soup cans. Also, don't turn the microwave on and use it as a timer. Use a timer. There's nothing in it. That will break it too.
Right.
So, but the issue is, yes, it's fun to talk about, but the issue is that these these things happen.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my very first experience with a microwave when I first came out. It's dating myself. And, it was good.
Yeah. I remember my mother made us go to microwave training class, cooking class as kids. So we wouldn't work with a microwave.
Complete your
But,
printing because all
yeah,
computers will be turned off. and
Even
closed.
just with the rest of the makerspace, you know, like it is super easy when you have power tools. You know, you've got long hair and all of a sudden the Dremel is wrapped around it,
Yep.
you know, it happens so fast. And people make silly mistakes, you know.
Okay, so what we have here is we have the policies, the waivers, but you've also got another document. I don't know, what do you call it?
Rental
The
agreement.
the rental agreement, which is going to have more details.
Right. That'll be the actual details of what it looks like to rent the kitchen, costs, all that stuff.
And I don't remember if I read it or not, but does it say something in here that basically you're agreeing to everything also in the rental agreement?
Yes, well, for the kitchen waiver,
Yes.
it's stated the library's kitchen policy. When you sign that waiver. So you have to sign the waiver and the policy, and the rental agreement. So both, all three would be covered. And agreed to.
Like Route 12,
Like what?
Route 12.
All the rental place.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta hand your wallet to them too.
That's cute.
I highlight a couple things in the makerspace policy, just based on the conversation that we had at the last meeting. Under use of equipment and materials, number one, the completed waiver, select tools will require a completed waiver form and or in-house competency training. So that was a little bit more specific training. The conversation last time was, what is that training that we're looking for? So that's in-house competency training. Point number three, that users may bring their own materials, but the library may request a copy of the material safety data sheet. So that was another point that came out of that meeting.
Let's see. I like the copyright part of it, but the library may request a copy of the material safety data sheet.
Yeah, number 3.
Yeah, I think,
That's good.
I think it should say will require, will request. I've been involved in that type of industry for long enough to know that there's some wonky stuff in there. If we just happen not to ask for it, I think, my personal opinion, I don't know the rest of the, my personal opinion, that's just a go-to thing. That we have to have that. If they're bringing something different.
Do you have anything to add to that, Chris?
Just that some materials may be purchased at Joann's or Michael's and brought in original packaging. In that case, I think we can approve them fairly well without the full written data sheet, but you're right, anything else that would be.
Well, just be careful because some materials, when they're put into a different state, you know, meaning in this case, heated up or whatever it is, they start off gassing and they start doing certain things that for their intended use perhaps is okay. But then if they start varying it at all, that's why I've had some bad experiences with things like this over my professional career. So that's my personal opinion why I'm very much, let's not let that slide.
I'm with Greg on this, because I've had people try to bring in things to get fired in our films, and you know, students who've been with me for years want to add glass to their pieces. And there's certain types of glass that you can fire and have it be safe, and some that you cannot, depending on the temperature that it goes to. So there's all sorts of, you know, in the vast majority of knowing what you're dealing with, it's got lead in it, it's got this in it, it's got that in it. It's important to know.
And maybe because I know it's probably going through your head right now. You're like, oh, geez, I'm gonna have to, you know, be asking for all this for like you said, something comes from John and Michael. Maybe, and I know it's a lot of upfront work, but maybe we do something where we make an approved list of things that can be brought in, that but we don't offer.
Absolutely, we've already searched for that, the laser cutter.
Okay.
That can definitely work for us.
Okay.
And then also, like, I mean, one of the other things you could add to it, like, you know, this list may not be all inclusive, and like anything that's ASTM certified, you know, would be okay, or something like that. Most everything is March.
Most of them are, sure, or UL or whatever. Like, we just, it's a different field that we're getting into. And we just have to make sure that we're not, that we're keeping everybody's safety in mind. I'm just getting it. Anything else, Ed?
Nope, just any other feedback on the waivers or policies?
What's the tour?
Janet's been scheduling them actually. Yes. The diversity.
Anybody else have any questions, comments on that one? All right, good conversation on that. So, and let's go on to item 4, 2022 budget timetable. Here we go.
It's budget season again.
It's always budget season, isn't it?
Feels like it.
Feels like it, yeah, right.
So I'm gonna ask Donna to speak to the timetable.
There. So the budget timetable for 2022 is presented to you here. It's very similar to the 2020 budget planning timetable, and different than the 2021. So last year, we brought the budget targets to you a bit later than usual, because of the pandemic. But this year, we're gonna be able to bring it back in June again. So we'll start in June with the targets, and then we'll meet up with the board again in September after the manager's been planning. Any questions about this?
You know, if I'm fine with the dates and all that. Though I was telling Mike before, sort of, I will not be here at the Monday, June 7th meeting, the target meeting, just for everybody's notification on that one. But I've asked, and they've come a couple times, of changes that are going to be probably come up because of the whole COVID situation and how we're going to be doing things differently. Is that going to add any additional complexity into what you're doing
It will behind the scenes here.
behind the scenes? Okay, good. I figured you were going to say that. Does that, how does it affect, do you think it's going to make any of these dates tighter than do you need any additional time or what I'm getting at?
No, I think this will work.
It is will work, okay. Questions, anybody? Comments? All right, excellent. All right, let's move on. Any other? Anybody? Come on, anybody? Okay, well, I guess all we need now is a motion for adjournment.
So moved. A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and we are done. Thank you, everybody.
Good meeting.
Fairly quick one.
Thank you for your good remarks on volunteer week,
Oh,
the video and the YouTube.